Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. The NFL offseason is obviously in swing. OTA is going on right now. And we are just about a week away from a pretty pivotal date on the NFL calendar. You often hear us talk about a post-June 1st release or a post-June 1st trade. Well, in some respects, that's just on paper, where June 1st plays a huge role for teams as they kind of plan roster moves and futures. That's sort of the line of demarcation for salary cap purposes when players are cut and traded. And it's also when they lock in compensatory draft picks, et cetera. So it's a big date on the NFL calendar. That's when teams can you can sign free agents and not worry about canceling out one of the compensatory picks that you're going to receive for losing a free agent. So it's a big date. So you have different phases of free agency where you have that initial free agent buzz. Then the market cools a little. Then you have the second wave of signing. And then it usually goes quiet until the draft, and then teams reassess, and post-June 1, you see this next wave of signings. And oftentimes it's veteran players who don't want to participate in off-season programs as well. That's why you see names like Richard Sherman and other guys like that still hanging out there. Well, Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com made some predictions about post-June 1 NFL deals. And he does have the Saints signing a veteran free agent in a post-June 1 deal. But it's not Richard Sherman. It's defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson. And the part about Sheldon Richardson, when I saw this, it was really interesting. By the way, Bill Barnwell predicts Richard Sherman to stay in San Francisco and be with the Niners on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Now, if Sherman's on a 1-year, $4 million deal and it's not in New Orleans, I might be super ticked. Because the Saints need a veteran corner, and if someone like Sherman's available on a 1-year bargain basement deal, that makes too much sense. Anyway, we'll get to that later. The Sheldon Richardson idea really fascinates me. Because Richardson is a guy that we've been talking about in New Orleans literally since the draft when he came out in 2013. We were talking in 2013 about Richardson as a possible draftee of the New Orleans Saints. And then whenever he was leaving the Jets, the Saints possibly as a landing spot for Sheldon Richardson. It's so odd that this is a guy that has been linked with New Orleans, and we've talked about him so much from the draft to different points in free agency, to where this may actually be the time where it comes to pass if they do end up getting a deal done. Now, here's the predicted terms that Bill Barnwell throws out. 1 year, $6 million. Now, remember also, when the Saints were cash-strapped, as they often are, and they signed Nick Fairley, they did a similar deal. It was like a 1-year, $6 million deal, but actually it was like a 3-year deal where they said the other 2 years were voidable. So it was really like a 1-year deal, but allowed them to spread out $6 million over 3 seasons. So it made it more cap-friendly. Maybe they do something like that. But Richardson is really interesting to me. So as Barnwell points out, the Browns lost both of their starting defensive tackles. They cut Richardson and chose not to re-sign their other starter. Of course, they signed Jadeveon Clowney, which allowed them to move on from Richardson. Now, the Browns have said they want to bring Richardson back, but that's yet to transpire, and maybe they could still bring him back into the Browns, or a team that could well be competing in their division and in the AFC. But Richardson has proven throughout his career to be a very valuable 3-down defensive tackle. He can rush the passer. As a rookie, he had 3.5 sacks. In year 2, he had 8 sacks. In year 3, he had 5 sacks. Those numbers tapered when he went his last year with the Jets, and then his only season in Seattle. and then in Minnesota, but then bounced back. In the last 3 years, Minnesota, 4.5 sacks. His first year in Cleveland, 3 sacks. And then this past year, 4.5 sacks. And he's also had some of his most productive seasons the last 2 years in Cleveland. He's played in all 16 games each of the last 2 seasons in Cleveland. He had 3 sacks in 2019, 4.5 sacks this past season. And he eclipsed 60 tackles each of the last 2 years as well. He hadn't done that since his last year with the Jets in 2016. So you're talking about a guy who has been productive, who has been durable. 8 NFL seasons, he's missed a total, in 8 NFL seasons, a total of 7 games. Think of the contrast with Sheldon Rankins, who you just allowed to walk in free agency, who was consistently battling injuries. When he was right, like in 2019 when he had 8 sacks, it was awesome. Couldn't keep him healthy. He had an Achilles injury, had a knee injury. That was the problem with Sheldon Rankins. Sheldon Richardson has been durable. He's played in all 16 games in 5 of his 8 seasons. And in 2016, 2017, he played in 15 games, each of those 2 years. The only season where he missed more than 1 game was back in 2015. He played in 11 games, 11 starts. So 121 games played, 118 starts. He's been durable. He's been reliable. He's been productive. He can rush the passer from the interior. He's a 3-down defensive lineman. He is Sheldon Rankins, except healthy and durable. I would love the idea of bringing in Sheldon Richardson. If you have David Onyemata and Sheldon Richardson inside, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport as your tackles, or as your ends, Carl Granderson, and then, of course, as a rotating defensive end, and then Peyton Turner, who you just drafted, who we know can play. We talked to him, can play inside and out, gives you versatility depending on what type of front you want to look at. And then you've got Malcolm Roach and Shai Tuttle as rotational players. I like that defensive line a lot. I like the athleticism. I like the size. I like the interior players, the versatile players, the edge rushers, the run stuffers, the guys that can rush the passer from the interior. You kind of check every box. And I really like the terms of that deal as well. This is just one man's opinion. It's Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com as he was predicting post-June 1 deals. And the Saints need a cornerback. Make no mistake, they got to get a cornerback in free agency to play opposite Marshawn Lattimore. And it's still possible Lattimore could miss games due to violations of the NFL personal conduct policy. So if that happens, you could need 2. You'd really be counting on Paulson Adebo early in his career. But you also need a defensive lineman. Maybe Sheldon Richardson, at long last, this could be his foray into New Orleans. To see if that comes to pass. But that's certainly one that would make a ton of sense financially and personnel-wise. We'll certainly keep you posted as the Saints and the rest of the NFL move through OTAs and then past that June 1st deadline. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.